At Cape Coast Castle, there's a door that's called the Door of No Return. And this door of no return, once it's flung open, those indigenous Africans who were left behind coined that phrase, the door of no return, because they knew that they would never see their ancestors again. In 1832, in the Virginia House of Delegates, a man named Henry Berry, talking to his colleagues, Mr. Berry said, "As far as we can see, we have closed every avenue by which light may enter the slave's mind, and when we will have succeeded in that task, we'll be safe and they will be on the level of the beast of the field." Meaning that this slave-making process was not just to put chains on people and make them pick cotton, cut cane, and do work for others, but it was also to extract, erase, eradicate, take away the knowledge that makes us human, and that is the knowledge of ourselves.
Everybody, we as Black Americans today have forgotten the struggles that they went through to pick cotton from sun up to sun down, the frame of mind, and it's like we're still here.
Exploring your past is very important. What we need to realize is that we were not slaves first. We were Africans. We were descended from a proud people, a proud nation of people, a proud continent of people. We were strong, we were warriors, we were kings, we were queens, we were mathematicians, engineers, scientists. We were all these things, you know. And I think that the quasi-Europeans have taught our children that we are descended from slaves, but we go far beyond slavery.
My mother's a storyteller, and my mother would always tell the same stories over and over and over. And one day I soon realized that if my mother was to pass away, then that's my history, the little that she knew about the people, the names, the places. So I started to record some of the information that my mother gave to me. And from that point I started to research to make sure that some of those things that she was saying lined up with some documents, and there it was. And everything from that point was just research after research and running to brick walls and getting up and starting all over again. Well, I first learned of the DNA process in 1999, just hearing about it and reading about it in different Black newspapers. And I kind of followed the works of Dr. Rick Kittle concerning the DNA test, the development of the DNA test. And I knew that the first time that test was on the market that I had to take that test. The test revealed for me that my maternal ancestors are from Niger, the Tuareg people, Northern Africa.
I've been a student of history for the past 34 years. I've been to Africa at least 8 times, West Africa. I've met with some of the kings. I met with President Charles Taylor and his wife of Liberia. I met with the president of the country where Kunta Kinte was born in 1750, Yahya Jammeh, which is the Gambia. I visited the village where Kunta Kinte was born, which is the village of Jufre. And I've also been to the slave castles in Ghana at Cape Coast and Elmira. So I've been in and out of Africa, but this is the icing on the cake, knowing for the first time where I am from, where my mother is from, and where my ancestors are from. I can now know a little more about myself as to what kind of life my ancestors lived on the continent of Africa.
We always knew that we were Africans, but we didn't know where. And I had never been to Africa. I still haven't been to Africa. But now I have a reason and a destination to go to. And that's a very serious impact. We can relate to a people as opposed to an entire continent.
My language, my identity, who I was taken. And from that African that came from Cameroon, then came my family.
I learned about the African ancestry test about 1999. I was at a conference in Dallas, Texas, and some of the panelists spoke about it, but I knew that it was something I wanted to do. However, I did not do it until I met Antoinette Harrell Miller here in New Orleans and became a member of the African American Genealogy Connection.
It's almost like no words to say, because many of my ancestors that went to those doors of no return, they knew that they would not be returning. Where they was going, they had no idea. Many of them did not make it across the Atlantic Ocean. To go back and to look back, I just think that God saw this day and He chose me to do this, to go back and open the doors, because those that thought they sealed the doors was not sealed. You know, there was some of our ancestors saying, I want to go home. But they had no idea that they would not be the ones that physically returned home, but somebody would go back home.
It's important for African Americans to trace their genealogy, to give them a sense of self-worth, and to know more in detail as to why you do certain things. Now, what I discovered, I thought it was like an addiction. My cousin and I both discussed it. We thought it was like a sickness of some sort. Our thirst for knowledge, an accumulation of books everywhere. And after I found out about the Songhay on my mother's side, they were very much into knowledge and learning things, and they had the first university in Timbuktu. That's the Songhay people. And in doing my genealogy, I discovered that my mother left this information for me. She didn't make any commotion over it, but she had just left this for me.
Genealogy is extremely important. For one thing, it's done with me. It's a step towards completion. You know, we've had our heredity, our heritage, our culture, our language, our religions, everything stripped away from us. Genealogy, African ancestry, it's a step to regaining what's been stolen from us.
Most of our children only know that we've been in the slave fields. They don't know that we had a glorious nation-building history.
We are more Europeanized than we are African. And that's where every black person came from, is Africa.
Not that I didn't want to go to Africa, but I said that when I go home, I want to go to the place that my ancestors came from. And Yahweh has answered my prayers that I will go home. And before I can go visit Cameroon and Ghana and all those other places, I have to go home first. Yeah. I would say that my family is doing okay, but in my mind it's always, what was it like in Africa? You know, if we would have remained in Africa, what would life would have been like for us in Africa? You know, so I would say that there's many college graduates in my family. I think that my family is one of the families that choose not to forget what our